The document they issued today is the report and recommendations of the Presidential Commission on Election Administration, but it should simply be known as the Ginsburg Report, because the most important thing about this report is that the Republican Party's fiercest election lawyer supports all of the findings and recommendations of this report, which amounts to a very sharp rebuke to Republicans in various states around the country who have been doing everything they can to restrict voter rights by, among other things, restricting early voting. It was Republicans in states like Florida who gave us obscenely long voting lines in 2012, despite the fact that we have known for a long time how to shorten those lines. The Ginsburg Report says no citizen should have to wait more than 30 minutes to vote. The report is filled with very specific guidance about how to speed up voter lines, including, of course, early voting. Here's one example of the level of detail in the Commission's report. Election officials should pre-test the length of time it takes an average voter to vote a ballot in order to accurately estimate how many poll workers, machines, and voting stations will be needed at each voting location. That, of course, is something that election officials should have been doing forever. The Commission has some more very modern recommendations, such as voters should be given better information on line length before they go to the polling place, such as providing an intranet feed from individual polling places. The Commission has recommendations to improve overseas voting and military voting, and it has a word to say about voter fraud, and barely more than a word. Fraud is rare, but when it does occur, absentee ballots are often the method of choice. So there's Ben Ginsburg, the most effective Republican campaign lawyer in history, the one who lawyered the Republican candidate into the presidency in 2000, telling Americans that fraud is rare. And in those rare cases, when it does happen, it doesn't happen at the ballot box. It happens in absentee ballots, which means that the Republican push for voter IDs at the ballot box is based on a fantasy. Voter IDs are not used in the most common form of voter fraud, which is absentee ballots. The report has another word to say about fraud in the footnotes, where it says the frequency of vote fraud is minuscule. Now, that ought to quiet down all the Republicans clamoring for voter ID laws, but we won't be surprised if it doesn't, because the voter ID laws have never been about stopping minuscule voter fraud. They have been about stopping voting. They have been about putting whatever hurdles Republicans could think of in front of voters who Republicans believe will not vote for them. The Ginsburg Report won't stop Republicans from trying to do that, but we can thank Ben Ginsburg tonight for providing some much-needed ammunition for everyone who is fighting for voter rights in this country.